Denver Public Schools rolls out a proposed safety plan giving individual schools the right to decide on armed officers. And it says they have plenty of mental health workers, which is weird because the district says it can't fill its mental health positions. Democrats unveiled their plan to slow down property tax increases if voters approve.
Homeowners in our state face record increases if we don't act.
And Colorado's plan to reintroduce wolves hits a fairly significant snag. Which state is going to give us some wolves? Our investigation shows it's not as simple as Colorado's leaders say. That's tonight on Next. A proposed safety plan for Denver Public Schools would allow individual schools, 6th through 12th grade, to decide if they want armed officers on campus. Weapons detection systems, like the ones they have at sporting events, those could be brought in on a building-by-building, case-by-case basis. First draft of that safety plan came out today. The school board asked that the plan be expedited after the shooting of 2 deans at East High as they were patting down a student for weapons. The safety plan does not make any changes to the pat-down policies, doesn't make any changes to the discipline matrix, which allows students back to class while they're charged with violent crimes, including attempted murder. The student who shot the deans at East before taking his own life had come to DPS following a weapons incident in Cherry Creek schools. The safety plan stresses that it's up to individual DPS schools rather than the district to find out about safety protocols for incoming transfers. So this DPS safety plan says that the district has plenty of mental health professionals. We told you about how police being brought back to schools this spring after the shooting was supposed to go side by side with more mental health support, but that never happened. Our Mark Salinger looks at how DPS can claim that it has enough mental health workers, while it also says it can't fill open jobs and keep its promise.
The school year at East High has seen its ups and downs.
It's been a struggle.
A roller coaster, Colleen Eder calls it. Her daughter is a sophomore.
There are so many great aspects to it, and then, gut-wrenching to get, text after text, lock down, lock out, lock in.
When the school board directed the district to bring back school resource officers in March, Colleen was pleased to find out more mental health professionals would be coming with them. That hasn't happened.
They make directives that sound good without taking into consideration if they're actually implementable and without even informing themselves of what's going on the ground and what the current state is.
Now that directive to add more therapists and psychologists seems at odds with how the district says things are going. In a nearly 50-page draft of a new safety plan released by Superintendent Alex Marrero this afternoon, the district says it already has more than 400 school social workers and psychologists, far exceeding its expectation of 1 for each of its 205 schools. DPS tells us they have 23 open positions right now for mental health care providers and are struggling to fill any more.
There's not very many of these individuals out there.
Rob Gould is the president of the Denver Classroom Teachers Association. He says one therapist can be responsible for hundreds of students.
Our students can't get the care that they need. Our students can't access the supports when they need them.
Parents were promised more mental health help. The board gave a directive that may have been impossible to fulfill. And now the district says it has more than enough help already. The roller coaster continues.
It can't keep going the way it is, and we're not gonna stop making our demands to the board.
Spokesperson for DPS says nearly everyone who is qualified for the job already has a position by this time of year, making fulfilling the board's directive difficult. They're now offering a $2,000 signing bonus to make it more attractive. We asked the district if they feel the board's directive to add more mental health professional, Kyle, is at odds with everything else that's going on. Yeah. We didn't hear back.
So you'll often hear, what red tape exists? Is there any impediment that they could strip away?
The answer is yes. And the state legislature is looking at that right now. Right now, to be a therapist or a psychologist in a school, you have to be both certified by the state and the Department of Education. They're looking to strip that away so any therapist and psychologist can also work in schools.
If you have the degree in the will, you could work with
Seems
kids.
to make sense.
All right, Mark, thank you. The governor and Democrats have a plan to slow down the steep rise in property taxes, and they want to put it up for a statewide vote in November. Last week, assessors from around the metro area came out to say that home values across the state skyrocketed last year, and property taxes are going to follow, unless the state legislature takes action. So Democrats are proposing a ballot measure that would lower the taxable value of a single-family home by $40,000 for at least the next 2 years. The proposal would also lower the statewide assessment rate over the next decade. That rate is a major factor in determining how much we pay in property taxes. Long term, the proposal would cap property tax increases at the rate of inflation. Local governments could choose to override that if they provide notice. To be clear, property taxes are going to increase next year. The Post administration says their proposal would just shrink the increase.
We want to make sure we relieve and provide and cut property tax rates by about 50% of the increase. At the same time, we want to make sure we don't defund our schools or our ambulances or our fire protection districts.
So as for schools, firefighters, local governments, all the stuff that rely on tax money, the governor's proposing a ballot measure that would allow the state to keep an extra 1% of the funds that would usually be refunded to you under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Republicans, who don't have the votes to stop the legislature from putting this on the ballot, they accuse Democrats of treating Tabor like an ATM to go to solve our state's financial problems. Speaking of Tabor, our next question comes from a viewer named Phil. He wants to know if the Taxpayer Bill of Rights would cap property tax increases regardless of rising home values. So, Phil, the short answer is no. Tabor limits how much tax revenue a city, county, or the state of Colorado can keep and spend. It does not limit how much revenue can be collected in the first place. So, for example, Mesa County still issues county-level Tabor refunds. So if rising assessments in Mesa County cause the county to collect more money above its Tabor cap, it'll just mean more goes out in refunds in the end. You still have to pay those higher property tax bills up front. You just might get some of it back down the road. This rush to find a partial fix for rising property taxes is coming in the final week of the state legislative session. They're done next Monday. And Republicans were threatening to hold everything up using the only slowdown tactic they have. Today, Democrats called their bluff, and it appears that Republican leadership does not plan to follow through on their slowdown threat to keep having bills read in full.
I would like to ask that we read this one at length.
I ask that this bill be read at length.
Seeing that the long bill hasn't been brought back yet, I'd like to read this bill at length.
So that just gums up the works and takes more time. But when Republicans don't have the votes to stop stuff, that is the measure at their disposal. Republicans were threatening to have every possible bill read at length unless the legislature went back and corrected a $10,000 typo in the state budget. Democrats point out that that typo can easily be fixed without redoing the entire budget debate, so the governor went ahead and signed the budget today. House Republican leaders told us this afternoon they will not be stalling every bill as they threatened, but they warned that some of their members might be flexing by slowing things down here and there. Wanted to thank you for the boost that you gave to a small town in southern Colorado where people are trying to finish their only park. Your latest Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign has raised more than $30,000 so far to finish Greenhorn Park. That park has sat partially completed in Colorado City for almost 20 years. They don't even get 9 News down there unless they're on Dish or satellite or something. But you are still willing to pile up $5 donations from across our state to help them out with their project in their small town. That's one thing that I love about your weekly giving. We can touch every corner of our state. Have an idea of where we might go next? Anywhere within the 4 corners of Colorado. Email me ideas to next@9news.com. Colorado's plan to reintroduce wolves requires the state to go out and get wolves. The state says it's talking to neighboring states that have them. That's news to those states.
We've done 0 formal discussions.
And creating an aviation field that looks more like Colorado. Next. The plan for gray wolves in Colorado will be finalized at a meeting this week. Raises the question, where does one go to get wolves? Turns out Colorado's having a tough time answering that question. Here's our Aaron Adelson with that.
Everything is going according to plan.
We are working so hard to make this happen.
That's the message state representatives recently heard from Department of Natural Resources Director Dan Gibbs.
We are on schedule to meet our obligation to restore and manage gray wolves.
CPW intends to reintroduce wolves by December 31st. To meet that deadline, Colorado needs wolves, and right now the state doesn't know where it will get them. But we've learned where it won't. Wyoming's Governor Mark Gordon tells 9 News Wyoming is opposed to sending wolves to Colorado. Wyoming isn't just against giving animals, they're against the whole gray wolf reintroduction.
Yeah.
We spoke with Wyoming's Game and Fish Director in March.
I do predict there will be wandering wolves from Colorado.
Brian Nesvik worries wolves in Colorado will move north, creating more problems for Wyoming ranchers.
They're large carnivores, and they will go find the quickest and easiest means to fill their belly.
Colorado's draft plan mentions Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming as possible sources. It says specific agreements have been discussed with these 3 states. A Montana official says that's not true. The Fish, Wildlife, and Parks spokesperson says, to be clear, we have not talked and are not talking to Colorado about moving wolves. An Idaho spokesperson says the states have had no formal talks. Colorado's plan also mentions Oregon and Washington as alternatives.
We are open to evaluating a request if it does come in.
The plan says CPW has also begun to explore an agreement with those states. A Washington Fish and Wildlife spokesperson isn't sure what Colorado means.
You know, that could be on their end where they've just done some research. We've done zero formal discussions.
Oregon has a similar response.
Colorado's technical working group decided that Oregon would be an appropriate source for wolves. Our agencies have had a few informal conversations, but nothing more.
Proposition 114 passed in November of 2020.
The Colorado Wildlife Commission meets to approve the state's management plan Wednesday, May 3rd, leaving CPW 8 months to get wolves and release them.
And we are adhering to the will of the people.
Aaron Adelson, 9 News.
And there's another possible speed bump for the state's wolf reintroduction plan. State legislators are still considering a bill that would delay wolf reintroduction until the feds list gray wolves as experimental instead of endangered. That would give the state even more control over managing the wolf population.
Happy Monday, everyone. Oh, it was a beautiful afternoon for us. Some sunshine, high-level clouds out there, and temperatures soaring into the 70s. I hope you like this as we kick off the month of May, because there's more where this came from. 60s and 70s lining up the eastern plains, 81 in Springfield with 70s around Kremling over to Eagle 2. You can see a storm system in and around the west coast. That's starting to push inland. A secondary storm anchored just off to the upper Midwest. Meanwhile, high pressure sandwiched right in between. That's where we will be and enjoy some relatively calm weather as we kick off the start of severe weather season. Tonight we are watching a couple of isolated showers up in the mountains, a few more clouds out there, but eastern Colorado looking at those clear skies. Tonight a few clouds out there, but temperatures not falling all that much. We'll be in the lower 40s here for the metro area. Overnight into early tomorrow morning, there's that sunshine. We're looking good. However, a little bit of moisture will be cruising throughout the afternoon, especially up in the mountains. You might even find a little bit of a rain-snow mix across the Continental Divide. It's about 4 p.m. here in Denver when the clouds start to increase. We might find 1 or 2 very isolated showers across the I-25 corridor. Nothing severe, but we do have a shot pretty much statewide for seeing a quick thunderstorm. Temperatures tomorrow, once again, back to the low 70s we go. Should be a nice afternoon. 50s and low 60s up into the high country. We go even warmer on Wednesday. So far looks pretty dry with our best chance for seeing some thunderstorms Thursday afternoon and again for the start of the weekend.
For minority students, a career in aviation can seem unwelcoming.
The problem is we're not exposed to the aviation career.
Black pilots who charted their own path want to change that. They're taking their message straight to students. Next. Getting a young person interested in a career can sometimes be as simple as an invitation. Even more important when that young person looks at the pros and sees few faces that look like their own. Our Byron Reed shares how aviation professionals are determined to diversify their industry.
Oh, any activities?
Asking yourself the right questions can lead to a career path in aviation.
Yeah, what's your claim to fame?
Questions Tony Marshall wants these students to ask themselves to fix a problem.
But even now, we have a problem finding young people who are interested in getting them on the path early.
Welcoming Captain Willie Daniels.
It's an issue Captain Willie Daniels II loves to address in stories.
I can tell a lot of stories.
Talking about his journey to becoming one of the few black pilots for United Airlines.
I started out with United 45 years ago.
Daniels is also the president and CEO of Shades of Blue, a group that shows a diverse group of students career opportunities in aviation and aerospace.
So we're looking to create a sustainable pipeline for well into the future.
Today, the group held their Shades of Blue Airline Symposium. People in the field who talked about pathways in aviation, including pilots, flight attendants, and aircraft mechanics.
We're looking at a worldwide shortage of pilots by 2030, about 804,000 pilots, 914,000 flight attendants, 769,000 aircraft mechanics.
Daniel says he hopes sharing his story will motivate more students of color, hoping to navigate a career path in aviation.
They have an opportunity to see, hey, if that individual who looks similar to me can do it, so can I.
I heard a lot of things from people here that really just boost you in that direction.
The mission is to get these students interested in a career up in the clouds by attending events that answers Tony's questions.
They are very important, and we want to reach out to the underserved community and get them involved in this.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
This is Shades of Blue's first symposium. They plan on hosting these gatherings around the country to introduce young people to aviation. Your feedback on how the governor's property tax plan impacts renters. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is about as green as it gets. So over the weekend, the city of Denver let people swap out their trash cans if they didn't want to be charged for the larger size, or pick up one of those green compost bins. Now everybody in town can compost, but you had to get the carts there and back. Check out the dude with the cart on his bike. Next viewer named Stevia Walther spotted this impressive environmental dedication. That's pretty good right there. If you see something that just says Colorado to you, email it to us, next@9news.com, or use the hashtag HeyNext. A viewer named Steve Uretsky rightly points out something about the governor's property tax plan. The idea would be to cut into everybody's taxpayer bill of rights refunds by 1% in order to make up some of the gap on property taxes. Steve says so renters would be giving up part of their Tabor refund to help out the homeowners. Yes, in this case, absolutely. The governor was asked about that, or at least the impact on renters today. What is the relief for renters? Homeowners are going to get help with property taxes, but rent keeps going up year after year. The governor said that he hoped that landlords would pass along the savings. If you're a renter, I can hear you screaming at your TV. Dave writes, hey, Kyle, my wife, Judy, knows where we can get the wolves. Have they tried Amazon? I imagine they have not tried Amazon, Dave. You know how that works. You think you got a great deal on a gray wolf, and then the box shows up, and you get the gray wolf out. It's not exactly what you expected, and then you have to repack the gray wolf into the box and take it to the UPS store. You ever tried to pack a wolf into a box? I didn't think so, Dave. We'll see you next time.